What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to JohnnyKpicks. And in this video, I'm going to go over my full card, picks and predictions for UFC 275 Teixeira versus Prochazka. But before we get started, please hit that like button, make friends with that subscribe button, and don't forget to turn on those notifications so you don't miss out on any of my new videos or live streams. So UFC Vegas 56 was yesterday, and overall, I thought it was a pretty entertaining card. I ended up going 11-3 on my picks, and with my bets, I ended up losing 0.05 units. Yes, you heard that correctly, 0.05 units lost. So technically, I guess it is a losing night, but I will take these kind of losing nights any day of the week rather than losing like minus 10 units or something like that. But like I said, it was an overall entertaining card, and there was a lot to like about it. Out of the 14 fights, there were 9 finishes. And some of my favorite finishes of the night was Blanchfield's standing guillotine, Ode Osborne's first round knockout, and Carolina's submission over Batelho. And as always, we can never have a card without at least a couple controversial judges' scorecards. So in the Maddalena Zhumagulov fight, it went to split decision, and like usual, there was 2 judges that completely saw this fight differently. So one judge gave Maddalena a 29-28, which I think was the correct score. That's how I had it when I was watching the fight. Then one judge gave 29-28 to Zhumagulov, which is okay because it was a close fight. And the last judge. So the last judge gave Maddalena 30-27, and there's no way Jeff Maddalena won all 3 rounds. But again, I thought the decision was correct. I didn't think it needed to go to split decision, but it was a closer fight. But this is just another example of the judges just looking at fights inconsistently. They're judging it one way, and then the other one's judging it a different way. And another fun decision of the night was the Selecki Da Silva fight. So remember, in this fight, there was a point deduction in the second round. So one judge gave the fight a 28-28 draw, which honestly, I had a bet on Selecki, and I really thought it was a 28-28 draw. And the second judge gave Selecki 29-27. Now, I could see that because Da Silva did get a point deducted in the second round, and round 1 was Da Silva, and round 3 was very close. It could have went either way. I personally gave it to Da Silva, but this judge gave it to Selecki. And the third judge gave 28-27 to Selecki. Now, that might not sound weird, but he gave Da Silva rounds 1 and 3. But in round 2, he gave Selecki a 10-8 round, but with the point deduction, it was really a 10-7 round. So I know in round 2, Selecki was basically on Da Silva's back the whole round, but I just don't think that was a 10-8 round. So if that wasn't a 10-8 round, it would have been a 28-28 draw, which that's the right score, I believe. But again, just another example of how inconsistent the judges are scoring these fights. But all right, guys, I'll stop complaining about the judges, and I'll get to my picks and predictions for UFC 275. The first fight we have is Jocelyn Edwards versus Ramona Pascual. Edwards is 10-4, 26 years old, 5'8" with a 70-inch reach. And Pascual is 6-3, 33 years old, 5'7" with a 66-inch reach. So with my pick, I'm going to pick Edwards to win. So Edwards is going to have the better striking, but the big red flag with her is her takedown defense is awful. Pascual does go for takedowns every now and then, and her striking isn't that great. And another thing about Pascual is she does tend to slow down as the fight goes on. And Edwards' cardio is pretty good, so I do think all 3 rounds will be okay. But the biggest worry for me is if Pascual does get early takedowns, if she'll be able to finish her. But Edwards does try to get up at least. She doesn't just stay down on her back and accept it. So even if Pascual does get those takedowns early, I think as the fight goes on, Pascual will start slowing down and Edwards' striking will start to take over. And I think she'll win rounds 2 and 3. So with my pick, I'm going to say Edwards wins this one by decision, but it could end up going to split decision. Next fight we have is Silvana Gomez Juarez versus Liang. Gomez Juarez is 10-4, 37 years old, 5'3" with a 63-inch reach. And Liang is 19-5, 25 years old, 5'5" with a 67-inch reach. So in this fight, I'm going to pick the underdog here, and I'm going to say Liang wins this one. So with Gomez Juarez, she's a very good striker with pretty good power, but her big red flag is takedown defense, and once she gets to the mat, if she's on her back, or even if she's on top, she is going to get submitted no matter what. And Liang has very good takedowns and very good wrestling with very good submissions as well. And the way I see this fight playing out is, if you remember back in Liang's last fight, she went guns blazing in the first round with Carnelossi, and she got those takedowns early, but she did gas herself out because she set a crazy pace there. And if she just doesn't gas herself out in the first round like that, I do believe she'll be able to get a submission win here. So with my pick, I'm going to say Liang gets that early takedown and gets a submission win in the first round. Moving on up the card, we have Kyung-Ho Kang versus Batgirl Danaa. Kang is 17-9, 34 years old, 5'9" with a 73-inch reach. And Danaa is 12-3, 32 years old, 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. So this is going to be an interesting fight, and I kind of went back and forth a little bit, but I ultimately decided to pick Danaa to win. So Kang is a solid wrestler, and he has decent striking, but if you remember in his last fight against Rani Yahya, his fight IQ is just off the charts awful. And with Danaa, he's a very good striker. He has very good power in his hands. And I know he lost his last fight against Gutierrez, but that was some kind of spinning back fist, and I don't think he expected that. And a little red flag for me with Danaa, though, is his takedown defense isn't that great. So if Kang does want to try to wrestle him, he probably can get some takedowns, but who knows with Kang? Like I said, his fight IQ in his last fight was awful. He fought Rani Yahya, who's a grappler, and he got to the mat a ton of times when he probably shouldn't have. So I can see this fight actually playing out on the feet. And if that's the case, I like Danaa here. I think he'll come back and get this win, and he'll look a lot better than he did in his last fight. So with my pick, I'm going to say Danaa wins this one by a second round knockout. Next fight we have is Jake Matthews versus Andre Fialho. Matthews is 17-5, 27 years old, 5'11" with a 72-inch reach. And Fialho is 16-4, 28 years old, 6 foot with a 74-inch reach. All right, so with my pick, I'm going to continue to ride the Fialho train here, and I'm going to say he wins this one. So this is going to be a closer fight than Fialho's last few, because Matthews is a solid fighter. He has good striking, he has good wrestling, and I know we haven't seen Fialho on the mat yet in the UFC, but Fialho does have good takedown defense. And with Fialho, we all know he has very good boxing, great power, and he's very durable. And I know in my last couple predictions for Fialho, I suggested that he just needs to work on some leg kicks just to throw something out there except just using his boxing. But in his last few fights, he didn't really need it because he got those knockouts early. But I do think this is going to be a little bit better competition than the last couple fights that he had. And the only way I see Matthews winning this fight is if he does use his wrestling and take down Fialho and wear him out a bit. But the way I see this fight playing out is I do think Fialho is going to be able to stuff the takedowns early. And then if this fight stays standing, like I said, Fialho is going to probably win this one like he usually does because his boxing is just going to be too much for Matthews. So with my pick, I'm going to say Fialho wins this one by a knockout, maybe in the second round. Next fight we have Maheshate versus Steve Garcia. Maheshate is 6'1", 22 years old, 6 foot with a 71.5-inch reach, and Garcia is 12-4, 30 years old, 6 foot with a 73-inch reach. So with my pick here, I'm going to pick Garcia to win. So Maheshate is making his UFC debut, and coming off his Dana White Contender Series win, he looked pretty good. He's a younger guy. He has pretty good striking with decent power. The only thing with him is he's a little hittable, and he doesn't throw a lot of volume, but he does have explosive strikes with some flying knees and stuff like that. And with Garcia, he's a solid fighter. He has very good power, good striking, and he also has pretty good wrestling too. So I think he's going to be the more well-rounded fighter. The more explosive fighter may be Maheshate, but again, I like Steve Garcia's experience, and he has really good power. So it's only going to take one shot for him to get Maheshate down. So with my pick here, I'm going to say Garcia wins this one, but I'm going to say he gets it done by decision. Next fight we have is Seung-Woo Choi versus Joshua Culibao. Choi is 10-4, 29 years old, 6 foot with a 74.5-inch reach, and Culibao is 9-1-1, 28 years old, 5'10", with a 73-inch reach. So this is going to be a pretty close fight, actually, and I kind of went back and forth a little bit, but my gut is telling me to pick Choi, so I'm going to go with Choi. So both guys have really good striking, but I will give the technical striking edge to Choi. I think his boxing is just a little bit cleaner, but Culibao striking, he does have good power. I just think with Choi's boxing, it's just a little cleaner, a little quicker. He has good counters. And like I said, both guys are strikers, so I don't see this fight going to the mat. And if it does, Culibao is going to probably be the one to do that. And I don't think it's going to stay down there for too long. But if Culibao does use his wrestling, if he can get Choi to the mat, I think he'll have a lot of success because he's not very good against grapplers, especially if they have really good submissions. But Culibao doesn't have any submissions on his record, so he's not really a submission threat. So with that being said, it's going to be a striking fight. It's going to be close, but with my pick, I'm going to say Choi wins this one by a decision. Moving on up the card, we have Brendan Allen versus Jacob Malkoun. Allen is 18-5, 26 years old, 6'2", with a 75-inch reach. And Malkoun is 6-1, 26 years old, 5'9", with a 73-inch reach. Alright, so these two guys have haunted my dreams for UFC betting because I can never seem to either pick them correctly or even bet them right. More times than not, when I pick Allen to win, he ends up losing. And more times than not, I pick against Malkoun and he ends up winning. So gun to my head though, I'm gonna give Allen one more chance and I'm gonna pick him to win. So both guys have very good ground games. Allen's more of a grappler with really good submissions, and Malkoun is a wrestler. He has good takedowns and he has very good top control. But on the feet, both guys are pretty hittable. Malkoun has pretty good boxing and Allen does have pretty good kicks, but lately his chin looks a little chinny, so it does worry me a little bit, but I don't think Malkoun has enough power to knock out Allen. So honestly, I can see this fight playing out on the feet instead of the mat because both guys are good on the mat, like I said. And if Malkoun does use his wrestling, Allen is a good enough submission threat where he can wrap up some kind of heel hook or knee bar or something like that. So for me, Allen's just going to be the more dangerous fighter. I think he can win by a submission. I think he can win by a knockout. And he could probably win by decision here. So I think the only way Malkoun will win this one is if he can wrestle Allen for 3 rounds and just win on points that way. So with my pick, I'm going to say Allen wins this one. And I'm going to say he gets a late round submission when Malkoun maybe takes him down and wraps up like a heel hook or a knee bar, something like that. Next fight we have is Della Maddalena versus Ramazan Emeev. Maddalena is 11-2, 25 years old, 5'11", with a 73-inch reach. And Emeev is 20-5, 35 years old, 5'10", with a 68.5-inch reach. Okay, so this is going to be a good fight. And I'm actually looking forward to see Della Maddalena in this fight and see how he can do against a wrestler. So with my pick, I'm going to say Maddalena wins this one. So Maddalena has very good boxing, very good power, and he's super accurate with his punches. And if you go back and watch some of his recent fights, he doesn't even throw with 100% power, and he leaves a mark on the other fighter's face with like 80% power. And with Emeev, he's going to be a wrestler. He doesn't have that great of striking, but he can hold his own. But his game is wrestling. He wants to get this fight to the mat. He wants to take you down and just grind on you. Maddalena does have pretty good takedown defense though at 75%, and this is probably going to be the best wrestler he's seen. But another thing to note though is Emeev's cardio does tend to fade as the fight goes on a bit, so it'll be interesting to see if this fight does go into later rounds. But ultimately, I do think Della Maddalena will get the knockout here eventually, maybe when Emeev's gassed a little bit in later rounds. So with my pick, I'm going to say Maddalena wins this one by a knockout. Next fight we have is Rogerio Bontorin versus Kape. Bontorin is 17-4, 30 years old, 5'5", with a 67-inch reach. And Kape is 17-6, 28 years old, 5'5", with a 68-inch reach. So I'm looking forward to this fight, and with my pick, I'm going to say Kape wins this one. So for me, Kape is going to be the more dangerous fighter. He's the more explosive guy. He's going to have the better striking. And he does have solid wrestling in his back pocket if he decides to use it. And with Bontorin, his striking is okay. He is kind of low volume on the feet, but he excels in the grappling and submission game. So he's going to probably want to get this fight to the mat. But Kape does have pretty good takedown defense at 80%, so I don't think Bontorin's going to have an easy time doing it whatsoever. And the way I see this fight playing out, though, is I do think Kape's going to be able to stuff the takedowns early. And if that happens, I think this fight will probably stay on the feet for the majority of it. And Bontorin does tend to fade a little bit in the later rounds. So I do think Kape's going to be able to piece him up as the fight goes on and maybe even get a late round finish. So with my pick here, I'm going to say he does get that knockout, and I'm going to say late in the second round. Moving on up the card, we have Weili Zhang versus Joanna's Jędrzejczyk. Weili is 21-3, 32 years old, 5'4", with a 63-inch reach. And Joanna is 16-4, 34 years old, 5'6", with a 65.5-inch reach. So this fight's going to be really fun to watch, and I've gone back and forth a few times with this one. But ultimately, I gotta go with Weili to win this one. So both fighters have very good striking, but I would give Joanna the edge here. I think her technical striking is a little bit better. She does have okay power, and Weili does have good striking with power, but I'm gonna give Joanna the edge in this. And wrestling on the mat, I'm gonna give that to Weili. Weili has good takedowns, but Joanna has pretty good takedown defense, so she knows how to stuff those takedowns because she's not a wrestler. She's going to want to keep this fight on the feet and just strike with Weili. So for me, if this fight does play out on the feet, it's going to be close because both of them have good striking, like I said, but they're just little different styles, and Joanna throws tons of volume with a lot of kicks, and Weili likes to load up with her boxing and do a lot of leg kicks. But if Weili does use that wrestling, and if she's able to get Joanna down, I think that's where the clear path to victory for Weili is. If she can hold her down on the mat and not have her on her feet, I think she's going to be able to cruise to an easy decision, but it's not going to be easy. Like I said, it's going to be a close fight. I'm going to give Weili the advantage here overall. And also, Joanna hasn't fought in 2 years, and her last fight was against Weili, and that went to split decision. So I do think this fight will be close. Will it go to split decision? I don't know, but Weili, I think, has gotten better since then, and I don't know just how good Joanna is. I don't know if she got better, if she got worse, or if she stayed the same. But with my pick, I'm going to say Weili wins this one, and she's going to win by a decision. All right, co-main event time here. We have Valentina Shevchenko versus Taila Santos. Shevchenko is 22-3, 34 years old, 5'5", with a 65.5-inch reach. And Santos is 19-1, 28 years old, 5'6", with a 68-inch reach. So this fight's going to be very interesting as well. And maybe one day Santos will be a champion, but I just don't think it's going to be at UFC 275 this time. So with my pick, I'm going to say Shevchenko wins this one. So breaking down both fighters have very good striking, but I'm going to give Shevchenko the technical edge in this. Shevchenko is a kickboxer. She uses her kicks a lot. She has very good striking with her hands. And if she lands cleanly, she can knock out Santos. And with Santos, she's a good striker as well. And she has a pretty good power, so she can also knock out anyone too. But I just think technically, Valentina's going to have the edge. And on the mat, it's close. But with Santos's wrestling and power, I do think she's going to have the slight edge on the mat. Valentina does have pretty good takedown defense, but if she does get on her back, she does work herself back up on her feet. She's not going to accept being on her back. But overall, the biggest reason why I'm picking Shevchenko, this is a pretty big step up in competition for Santos. I mean, in her last couple fights, she's fought Roxanne Modafferi and Joanne Wood. So to me, I don't know if she's going to be able to close that gap from Joanne Wood because Shevchenko's fought Jessica Andrade, Chookagian, and I know Shevchenko's fought a couple trash cans lately, but there's just nobody in the division for her to fight because she just cleans out everybody except Nunes. And that actually might be the next fight if Shevchenko wins. But I could definitely see Santos looking good early, maybe in the first round or halfway through the second. But Shevchenko's just going to take over after that, especially in rounds 4 and 5. And Santos hasn't been in rounds 4 and 5 yet, so it'll be interesting to see if it goes that far. So with my pick here, I'm going to say Shevchenko wins this one by a decision. All right, main event time here. We have Glover Teixeira versus Jiri Prochazka. Teixeira is 33-7, 42 years old, 6'2", with a 76-inch reach. And Prochazka is 28-3-1, 29 years old, 6'3", with an 80-inch reach. So this fight's going to be fun to watch for however long it lasts, and I definitely don't think this fight will go past 2 rounds. But for me, both guys have clear paths to victory. It just depends on who's going to be able to finish who here. But with my pick, I'm going to say Jiri gets it done and becomes the new champion. So no surprise to anyone here. I'm going to give Jiri the striking edge. I think he's going to have the more power. I know he's a bit unorthodox with his striking, and he does keep his hands low with his head up, but he is so unpredictable that he could do some like spinning elbows, flying knees at any time. And I know he's super quick with his strikes, so I don't know how Glover is going to be able to react when that happens. But Glover is no slouch on the feet. He still has some power in his hands, but he's 42 years old. He's not as fast as Jiri on the feet, but he's going to have the clear wrestling and grappling advantage. And if he can get Jiri on the mat with a well-timed takedown if Yuri's too aggressive, this fight can go his way real quick, because I do think he'll be able to wrap up a submission once that happens. So again, it just depends on who's going to be able to finish who. Is Jiri going to be able to catch Glover early, or is Glover going to be able to take down Jiri and just get a submission like he did against Jan? But I'm going to say Jiri is not going to be as aggressive as he usually is. He's going to stay at range. He's going to pick his spots to be aggressive, and he's going to eventually catch him with maybe something that Glover doesn't see, and he's going to be able to wobble him and end it with a knockout. With my pick, though, I'm going to say Jiri gets an early second round knockout. Alright guys, so those are my picks and predictions for UFC 275. Thank you everybody for watching, and on your way out, please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't. I hope everybody enjoys the fights this weekend, and until next time, happy fight night.